So maybe you're not as proximate as I hoped, but let's start this way. Turn to someone nearby to you and explain using only hand gestures what you do. I'll give you a minute. Go ahead. No talking, just hand gestures.
Is there an EQ? Can we take 800 hertz down?
Now, now see, okay, all right. Okay, contain yourself, contain yourself. Brilliant. Okay, so what I've just showed is the heart of my thesis, which is that all you need to make an experience, all you need to essentially unleash theater from the box where it happens is people and a place and a prompt. So, let's see, here we are, okay. So people, a place, and a prompt. And so, hang on, I'm just gonna bring up my notes. So, oh, look at that, I'm already through that part, okay. So, the premise here is that theater is escaping the venue. And I think that for many of us, our careers have had us in concrete boxes, some more spherical rooms, maybe, or round places. A dodecahedron, once or twice, yeah. But the point is, there used to be maybe a theory that what we practice happens only in one kind of place. And what I've seen and been experiencing lately is, and I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, and I've been getting to London where there is just a proliferation of spaces. So awesome. See, I told you I'm not an audio person. I even have bad luck with audio. So there's been a proliferation of spaces that we wouldn't readily identify as theater. And they are retail spaces, they are educational spaces, they are ad hoc gathering spaces. And I've recently been developing this, also an adjacent thesis, which is, this revolution, this combination of people, places, and prompts, and code, and a little bit of commerce, but also just a lot of creativity, is unleashing the new theater. Because there is an ongoing conversation right now, is theater dead, right? Or is theater over? And I think that this is rooted in the current crisis that's happening mainly in North America with what I would call institutional theater. Repertory theaters, regional theaters, and even if you talk to Broadway producers, they say they're in crisis, but I think that their bank accounts beg to differ. So what does this mean for us, and what's happening? And I think what's happening is we're seeing something that's happening from the top down and the bottom up. And it's coming to meet in the middle. And when it meets in the middle, that is what theater has become. That is what the new form of theater is. And theater has also always served multiple masters. It's served inspiration, it's served commerce, it served capricious joy, it served education. So I've chosen to use theater as the moniker, a convenient moniker for, in our case, we're mainly talking about immersive interactive experience. So at the top of that stack, I alluded to the top, you've got things like Sphere, which is remarkable, and we've been lucky enough to be in that room in a working capacity, which comes with many challenges and also some incredible rewards.
A lot of challenges.
A lot of challenges. It's also happening at the top in places like ABBA Voyages, which is like kind of an extraordinary incidence, whether you're into ABBA or not. It's an extraordinary incidence of like incredible calculation, incredible application, at the highest level of content, of lighting, of direction, of even, dare I say, dramaturgy. I was blown away by it. And it's also happening, for instance, maybe I should introduce myself, I don't know. I'm Bob. No, I spent 28 years as a creative director and a production designer and a very video-oriented design person, and I've had professional ADHD my whole life. You know, many people find a convenient home in like concerts, or they're like, you know, or I have friends that have just carved out an incredible existence in brand activations and conferences, or, you know, they do broadcast or they do opera. I get distracted by shiny things, and so I've done all of them. But recently, I've also been, I've taken a job. I have a day job. It's crazy. And
It's weird to see you in a Home Depot apron, I will say.
yeah, welcome to Home Depot. Welcome to Home Depot. Welcome to Home Depot. It is kind of like that, but not. I'm the director of innovation for ACT Entertainment, and as such, I'm responsible for the video portfolio, the video product line. So I have the extraordinary good fortune of like running Green Hippo, which is amazing because I discovered Nigel at the back of the floor at LDI, I think in 2002 with the V1, and I'm like, oh my God, what's this? And now I have this privilege of inheriting this incredible legacy and this technological journey that's been on, and now I'm getting to invent the next version of that. And in thinking about what that next version is going to be, we're thinking about how do we create a tool set for creators who are gonna have to work in any kind of space, who are gonna have to have a multiplicity, a full spectrum of input, whether it's heat mapping, whether it's LiDAR scanning, whether it's proximity detection, camera vision, audio, you know, whatever. And then on the input side, we've been asking ourselves the question, what is media playback? You know, and I think for a long time that was content that we would pop into a layer, or we would pop into a slot of whatever program we're working in and hit play. But we all know that it's also become generative. Like, I'm sure that everybody in the room has probably at least heard of Notch, or Touch Designer, or Smode, or any number of things. Most recently, Unreal Engine has assumed an enormous prominence in my creative workflow, but also in the playback side, like, and other game engines too. And there are even now sort of abstraction layers that I'm even barely aware of that are coming. And in the middle, you have a desire for the creatives to intuitively and innately bring these input layers together with these output layers and produce not necessarily just a media moment, but an experience moment. And part of this comes from this transition of us thinking about it in prescribed boxes and in prescribed ways. The audience is moving from observer to participant. And in fact, this is the most desirable outcome, because there's no better way than play to get people to soak up an idea, have a moment of joy, feel an impulse to buy something, right? And so this is another important plank of what I'm talking about. And again, at the top of that stack at Sphere, if you've been in Sphere or you go to Sphere, it's an extraordinary sensory, you know, comprehensive sensory experience. And likewise, if you go to Apple Voyages, or, you know, recently with Green Hippo, we've been supporting this retail thing called Future Stores, which started out in London. There's a pop-up opening in New York right now. And this is effectively an LED volume that's not being used for merged reality or XR. It's being used as a completely malleable canvas for brands, you know, whether that's Mercedes or Apple or Disney, to inhabit and then create ad hoc momentary worlds and have people be able to play in them. So that's what I've been seeing at the top. And then I've been seeing at the bottom, you know, again in London, I had the incredible opportunity to, and if you haven't heard of the name of this, just hang on for it, it's okay. I had the incredible opportunity to participate in something called You, Me, Bum Bum Train. Yeah, okay, take your moment to giggle. It's it's good, but it's an amazing piece of art, and it's something that started actually a while ago, I think in 2008 or 2009, location-based, purely like zero budget, volunteer-driven, audience of one, right? And I'm not going to give away a lot about it because that's part of the social contract you enter when you either volunteer to do You Me Bum Bum Train, or you are the audience. But let's just say it puts you in a bunch of location-based, incredible situational moments. Some of them are, at this point, kind of media-driven. Many of them are just, just high-fidelity situations, that have lots of stuff. And then you have to react as the audience member and be in that. So, and now, and the funny thing is I love that example because they started with nothing. It's super, I grew up in the 80s, so I am very attracted to the punk aesthetic. And not just aesthetic, but the punk philosophy of give me $5 and some gaff tape and a will to disrupt, and I will make something that is going to blow people's minds. And that's how that began. Now You Me Bum Bum Train, the wait list is 1 million people long to both volunteer for it and to experience it. And unfortunately, in my view, it kind of trended to the point where to experience it, you kind of have to be like Ewan McGregor or Madonna or somebody who's super prominent, is going to get to be the audience member. So that came from the bottom, and I like it because it's an example of something that came and it was hatched in this punk mindset, and then because it created a genuine experience, right? Because kind of fuck the technology, the tools. What we do is not about pixels. What we do is not about bandwidth. It's not about compression. It's not about that. It's about, does something happen in here? And moreover, does it happen in the company of our fellows, right? Because that's when it gets amplified, and that's when it gets durable and it sticks, and that creates that commercial impulse, or that moment of joy, or that appreciation of art. So having said that, and I'm with two people up here who I treasure and adore and have had the opportunity to collaborate with on numerous occasions, at the top, at the bottom, in the middle. Did Pablo, did I just say you're the bottom?
I guess I am.
Well, this is awkward.
I mean that Pablo and I have done some innovative, very economically constrained things. But I wanted these two with me because I think that they're both participants, longtime participants in this philosophy of experimentation, this philosophy of making the audience into collaborators, and of course, because we are who we are, and we're in the room here, because we are all obsessed with how we bend media and bits and bytes, and how in this world we live in, where we're completely surrounded by and held by and enabled by things digital, how we're translating that digital into human. So, having set the table that way, and please excuse me, we don't have a ton of visuals. You know what, we see enough visuals, don't we? Cool pictures are great, but I wanted this to be more of a cultural conversation. Oh, well, actually, Pablo has some visuals. There we go, with the framework. You seem poised.
Yeah, I think, thank you for setting that up. Also, hi, I'm Aaron Altmark. I run a company called Visual Endeavors. We're based in the entertainment hub of Santa Cruz, California. It's lovely. You should come visit. We're 10 blocks from the beach. There's a lot of breweries, coffee shops. There's not that much else going on, but we have a really cool studio space, which is set up as an immersive R&D play space, sponsored by a lot of auctions in the San Francisco Bay Area that I grabbed a lot of gear from. My background is originally, I went to school for theater and dance. Lighting specifically. Pablo actually once tried to teach me After Effects, but I was too busy doing raves on the weekends to do my homework, which worked out because I'm still, I chat GPT my way through how to do keyframes now. But I think it's interesting because my journey has been circuitous at best, but I've gone through getting a degree in theater, coming up in that world, and really enjoying this idea of an audience in a room watching a thing and getting a feeling from it. And that was the core of why I loved theater and why I loved dance, and then why I started to love music and how technology and music could go together. And then in the middle of my very circuitous education path where I was also working through it, I started working at nightclubs in Las Vegas overnight, and then going to school after getting breakfast in the morning. It was pretty horrible. But instead of just like hitting buttons and kind of counting to 4 and not caring, I started to think about like how people gather in a space and how you elicit a response, and effectively how you make people go woo in that context. But then I started doing big festivals and seeing the effect that visuals, lights, you know, a cohesive moment could have on people and on a feeling. And I've always also had a bit of like this idea of synesthesia with music. I just love music and the way it affects me and the way it affects people. And I particularly have a really heavy emotional response to music. I grew up playing instruments, playing piano, saxophone. I tried to play guitar, but my fingers are too short. So I started playing lighting consoles. Yeah. And that was cool. And it was really fun being able to figure out, like, you know, you can make these moments and use the technology, the lights, the video, all these things as kind of transparent watercolors or crayons or whatever. And that has scaled up to now I'm doing a lot more of these like brand activations. And I've found that I actually end up using this language of theater and narrative on the daily to kind of back up from these bigger visions of like, why are we using this huge LED screen? Like, why are we using Notch? Why are we using Unreal? Like, what are who cares about the tools we're using? What is the story we're telling, and why? And that's been a really interesting question to challenge not only clients but also myself. I found a lot of times when we're putting in like extremely complicated, sometimes unnecessarily so, systems with touch designer or motion tracking or interaction. It's like, what's the story? Why are people coming into this space? What are they coming in to experience? We have stuff like the Sphere. We have, you know, these like corporate conferences that all of us do, where you're really just trying to support the message, support the brand vision, but there's still a story and there's still a feeling you're going for. And so I've particularly found, like I said, that this being able to back up and kind of circle back to this idea of theater, this idea of place and gathering and like, why are people here? That has been a really fun exercise across the board. And it's also unified these efforts across the different genres of work and of different tools and of pixels. Like, it's been really fun for me to lean back on that. Insofar as my family and I just went to Scandinavia for a couple of weeks, and I found this amazing bookstore in Copenhagen that everyone should go to. Also, Copenhagen's amazing for designers. There was this bookstore. It's a tiny bookstore, and they have used rare vintage books. It's like maybe the size, the whole bookstore is maybe the size of like the Studio B room with that height of ceilings, and there's just piles of books everywhere. Literal just piles. And bookshelves, it's so claustrophobic. I went in there with my toddler, who's almost 2, on a chest mount pack, and I had a backpack on, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna knock this whole bookstore over. And you go to the bookstore owner, and he's like, well, what are you interested in? Like, what are you looking for? And it's like, well, we're looking for Hans Christian Andersen, you know, picture books for our kids, and I'm interested in, I don't know, art, architecture, chairs. And it was this really fun exercise of like literally digging through piles of books and sourcing up all this material, which consequently I have a huge pile of Scandinavian design books at my studio now. But it was really fun. Now I have this stack of books just about like art and design and the really like tenets of it, and theater, and, you know, the theory of what does the shape of a chair mean? And I started reading through some of this, and it was helpful for me to just cook it down, because we all get so, I specifically, and a lot of people in this room have seen it and been there with me, I get so buried in the technology and so buried in like, we can do this cool thing, we can put in, Rod, buzz off, we can put in all these really cool workflows and color workflows, and we can do Notch, and we can do these like particles, but like, why?
Well, that's exactly it, right? Like the why in the middle, because you've got the people in the place, and I think a lot of people stop there. Like they fill a place with technology, they get an audience in there, and then something, I'm not going to say superficial happens, but maybe something without a deeper meaning happens because they miss the prompt. They miss the giving the audience agency. They miss the introducing an opportunity for play. Like, and Pablo, I think your work, especially a lot of your installation work and some of the work you've done with dance companies, and I think you guys, you've had a relentless practice of engaging, of transforming audiences into co-conspirators. So, I mean, but and I've seen lots of shows that are technologically just unbelievable, but have felt empty. And they're LiDAR tracking, or they're doing this, or they're doing that, and they're interactive, but have they, is the audience now just observing spectacle, and they've been alienated from an opportunity to be participatory? So, Pablo, what do you think of all that?
Yes. No, I mean, I think a lot of you in this room know me, but I'm going to introduce myself anyways, for those who don't. I'm Pablo N. Molina. I actually, as Aaron was once one of my students, I was once one of Bob's students. I was not a great student. I didn't show up to class.
He came to the first class that I taught at CalArts, and he attended the class. At the end of the class, he said, "Bob, you have nothing to teach me. I am leaving."
That is absolutely not true, but
See, I was nice comparatively.
He likes to tell that untrue story all the time. But actually, Bob, taught at CalArts for a couple years, and then he moved on, and I inherited that program from Bob because they left right as I was graduating. So CalArts was like, "Oh no, you're not leaving," and then I got stuck there teaching for 10 years. And that was a great experience. And props to Peter Flaherty, who's now running the program and doing an amazing job. So my story begins pre-CalArts, but going to CalArts for graduate school really opened my eyes. And it exposed me to a ton of history of art and the avant-garde movements of the early part of the century, the mid part of the century, and California and LA, and like the way that artists were really groundbreaking in ways that I honestly hadn't been familiar with yet. And it also exposed me to a lot of site-specific work. And I got involved in a lot of site-specific work. And my undergrad background is both in film and theater, but also in physics and computer science. So I was kind of at a point in the in the 90s and early 2000s where all of this was happening, and I just got really lucky because I knew how to code and I understood some of the physics behind what we do. So I fell into that niche pretty naturally, and really by accident. And yeah, like Bob said, I worked with a ton of experimental theater makers and dance makers that are very multidisciplinary and cross boundaries. And we've created a lot of pieces that break out of the traditional stage and are much more site-specific and involve journeys. I think the word journey is very synonymous with my career, both in just my own personal journey, but also the work that I do primarily, and definitely in the last few years, it's all about creating the space for people to take a physical journey through space, but also a physical journey, but also a metaphoric journey through like story and time. And to that end, I can talk about a couple of projects specific that some of you might be familiar with. but the
Your image is not on the screen.
huh?
You don't have a picture up there.
Do you guys want to switch?
As usual, in the room full of video experts. Getting PowerPoint to work? Oh my
There we
gosh.
go. So I think all you guys are familiar with that building. So that was my first visitor center design and technical experience. If you haven't done that journey, that visitor experience, it begins in the basement. And it's all about, I mean, obviously it's a very solemn place, right? Like there's a lot of history, some very sad history, and so there's a lot of context that needs to be given in that process of going through that journey. So, you know, we started with this context-making journey in the basement, and then as you go through the basement, you eventually reach the elevators. And this was the first of these elevator experiences that now are everywhere. Like you guys, I'm sure have experienced them in other buildings, but at the time this was very revolutionary. And you know, the elevator is clad with LCD panels, and the video players are on board the elevators, and everything is timed to the actual elevator journey up to the top. So you get a history of New York City happening as you go up, right? So you start with the founding of New York City, and then you see New York City build itself many times over until you get to modern times at the very top. And you know, that's a very exciting journey, sometimes a little bit disoriented because those elevators go pretty fast. And so, you know, the physical with the virtual sometimes can be, some people don't handle it great, but it's really fun. And then, sorry, my computer is freaking out. Did the HDMI?
No. Oh. See,
I told you the cable wasn't long enough.
This HDMI cable is not happy.
HDMI is just a sparkling DVI.
Anyways, eventually you get to the top, the very top, and they funnel you. And now what's really important about this journey so far is that it has all been interior, right? You have not gotten any sense of anything but enclosed spaces and dark spaces, right? And so they funnel you into this top lobby that is also interior, and there's no windows, and then you come into this space, which is the See Forever Theater, where we did what at the time was a really, really challenging projection mapping little presentation. You know, it was challenging because of like the distances and the projector positions available and stuff. But you know, physics. We made it work, and then the amazing part of this is that when the presentation ends, the walls that are being projection mapped start to go up one at a time, and they reveal the windows. And you're in the 102nd floor of World Trade Center, and so the skyline becomes the big payoff for this whole journey that you've taken through, you know, history, context, and it's a really beautiful moment.
Have you spent a lot of time like watching the audience as they?
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, for sure, and that, I mean, there's a lot of wows. That's definitely a wow moment, yeah, and it was so challenging that there was issues at the time, you know, with like video servers and automation and like sensors and things, and so things weren't lining up, and so I ended up spending like literally like 2 weeks like writing axle and diesel curves by hand on a piece of software that I had to write like a piece of middleware to make all of this stuff actually sync, and I literally got it perfectly dialed in the day that Major Bloomberg came to the site to visit the site like a week before we opened. So it was like that down to the wire, and But it was a great moment when everything really actually worked. And that's the thing about, I think everything that we do in this, I think that the people in this room know that feeling of like when you really nail the moment, and that moment just amplifies itself well beyond just like the lighting cue and the dancer moving their leg this way. Like it's just like the combination of everything. It's just, I mean, that's the moment I live for, like the moment where everything comes together and you just, yeah, it's wow. Anyways, so, and then there's a little interactive docent thing that, you know, happens after you come out of it, once you've revealed the whole thing. Yeah, that was a really fun project. It's now 12 years old. It's incredibly, it's incredible how fast.
Which is just, it's kind of evidence that if anybody tells you you're involved in a permanent installation, you should call them a liar, because it will be destroyed at some point. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, and right now they actually are in the process, I think, of updating a lot of the stuff that we did. The most recent project I did, and one that some of the people in this room actually just got to see in person, is Top of the Rock. So the other side of Manhattan, Rockefeller Center, and also a journey through time and history, and also design. Like that, one of the amazing things about Top of the Rock is it's obviously this incredibly beautiful landmark building with amazing art already inside of it. Like, you know, that has been there for decades, almost a century. It's going to be a century next in like 7 years, I think. So we had to respect that, right? We had to respect the context of the Art Deco design and everything that was the context of the building itself. And that also led to an incredible amount of technical challenges and restrictions that we were under because of the nature of the architecture and the fact that you can't just like take a floor out. Like that's just not possible, right? So we had this very challenging but ultimately incredibly rewarding experience of renovating that whole visitor experience and creating, again, a journey that starts as soon as you enter as soon as you get your ticket and enter this beautiful lobby with the chandelier, and you go upstairs, and then you're presented with this beautiful mural with like real gold leaf on it, which. And then you have this projection map model, which was a real technical achievement in itself because of like the restrictions that we had and the level of accuracy that we were looking for, and the fact that nobody there to maintain it, so it has to maintain itself. So that was a big deal. And then you go into a little theater that gives you context for, you know, the history of Rockefeller Center, then an elevator experience again, and then eventually you get to the top where we put you on a beam and take you out 20 feet into the air, rotate you and take a picture of you so that you can do the famous picture from when Rockefeller Center was.
That's terrifying.
Is Rockefeller Center that picture?
So yeah, so you get that as a souvenir. And then if you're lucky and you're there right at sunset or at night, you get to experience this beautiful sculptural Art Deco outdoor elevator, which is also gorgeous. And yeah, the view from there is priceless. Yeah.
It's just a
Spider was there a couple nights ago, right at sunset, and he got the best moment that you can experience there. And you know, obviously all this stuff is run by Notch and by blah, blah, blah. You know, you guys know all the technical stuff that, you know, but that's not what's important, right? It's the experience.
It's what it adds up to, yeah. Now, you and I were talking, go ahead if you want.
I'm curious, Pablo, just like, so this is obviously, these are very site-specific works. And what I've seen a lot, and I'm working on a couple of these kind of projects, these like experiential venues, the like hopscotches and the team labs and like these kind of places where you're going into, you're paying money to go into a big room with a bunch of different rooms of really cool interactive art. I look at those and I look at this. Those are very different experiences. There's like there's narrative, and those don't all not have narrative by all means. They're really cool. But I would venture to say that like this is a different thing. I'm curious, like, what's your opinion? How do you approach that versus what we see a lot of these like venues that are meant to just be cause wonder? Like that's the experience you're supposed to have. Spectacle, wonder, awesome. Yeah.
I mean,
Mike.
yeah, really quickly because we're running out of time, but
Sorry, don't be mad, Rod.
and we want to open up for questions. But yeah, I think I've been really lucky. One, I've been working with incredibly talented people. You know, these are projects that take hundreds of people to make happen, and so you know, I'm only a small part in a small cog in a big set of gears. But ultimately, yeah, I've been lucky because these kinds of projects that I worked on have all come with a built-in context and a history, right? And so as long as you really lean into that and you respect that and you find a way to make that come to life, then if you do a good job and you're respectful, you're gonna succeed, right? Because you just have so much history, so much context, and yeah, so yeah, you just lean into the themes and the things that the project just, you know, naturally has. So that's one of the advantages of working in real space versus virtual space that is just created out of nowhere.
So I want to take that, but I want to move it back because you just alluded to something, which is some of these projects you're working on. Like you and I were talking about hopscotch before, which is amazing. But like, you know, oh yeah, we're gonna get. I'm just gonna give him one thing, and then we're gonna do the question. So, like, because I just want to land this by talking about like, again, this is absolutely experiential. But what about where it starts to drift really into attracting the guests as collaborators, co-conspirators, players, you know, if you will, like, you know, do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of?
I can do a lightning round. This is our studio space in Santa Cruz that, like I said, I've set up as just a play space. We have like, it's basically like this. We have an OptiTrack, blacktrack system. We got a bunch of projectors that I got on auction, and we just play around. And so this
I'm
is
going
like,
to send you a hippo, by the way.
You should, yeah. This is what I've been playing a lot with, and we have a really good First Friday scene in Santa Cruz that's like, it's just an art walk every month. And I'm not good at opening every month because sometimes on a gig, but there has been a lot of fun of this idea of play. Like we had Brett Bolton come and do a show there in February, which was amazing. We were able to host events. I think this style, for me, there's like two separate, you know, venue styles. There's this style of now where we're just putting a bunch of technology together, and it's really buzzy. It's like hashtag immersive. It's, you know, experiential. Everybody wants to see this kind of stuff. And so for me, circling back and landing all this is like, I think that my challenge and our challenge now as technologists and creative technologists and artists is like having a play space, using the play space to figure out how not just like making a cool particle system, but like what does the particle system do? Why is the audience doing it? Like why are we bringing people in when there's not a narrative like Pablo has? Like how are you going to tell a story so that this experiential idea, the experience you're doing, lands more than an Instagram photo?
And I think that points in. Now we are going to turn it over to some questions, have some dialogue.
Yes, otherwise Rod's going to yell
but
at us.
But it does point to the fact that I think maybe one of the most important things that we can be doing right now is to be experimenting and prototyping. And you know, great, we've had the technological success. We've unlocked so many of these questions. Now, how do we take this and land it in the human heart and the human experience and really come up with super compelling things? But Rod's got a microphone. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts?
Cassidy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cassidy.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Thanks for the talk. It's been great. You've been alluding to a lot of different works kind of on the low budgetary end and the very high budgetary end. And in my experience, I've seen that those types of events attract very different types of audiences, right? You know, the low budget are getting a lot of us like theater people are excited to play, are really engaged with the process, where on the very, very high end shows, you're getting a lot larger of an audience, and you're getting people that might be interacting more passively with art or maybe not familiar with the practice of play, as you keep alluding to. I'd love to hear your feedback of like how you engage different types of audience members who maybe are willing to engage in different levels and bring everyone to an equal playing field.
So one of the tricks that we learned when we were doing a lot of experimental work, which is one that doesn't necessarily attract an audience beyond the sort of, artsy-fartsy crowd, was to put it on the street, like put it in places that you are not expecting it to. So we did a piece, we just literally retired it last year, but we toured it for 12 years in a water tank.
Piece is so
really
awesome.
beautiful piece that we were fortunate enough to take all over the world, like literally everywhere, including the middle of Times Square. And we put it in the middle of a plaza on top of a train station in London. And so people would not have any choice but just accidentally come upon it, right? And it was completely free. It was totally open to the public, free public art, essentially. I don't know if I have time to find a picture, but there's a picture of Times Square, of when we did in Times Square, where literally there's like tens of thousands of people just mesmerized. Like we like literally stopped time in Times Square for like the 7 hours that the show happened. It's super long, super durational. And we were always impressed by how people would get so engaged in it that they would just forget about their day and literally stay there for 5, 6, 7 hours watching this thing happen in front of them that they had no expectations for, that they had no context for, but that because it was just so, moving, it just made them stop and take notice. So I think that that's one of the tricks that you can do, right? To bring an audience that's not familiar with the type of non-traditional work that might be out there.
Yeah, I also think that there's a lot of really cool like city-sponsored things happening now. So there's like Blink Cincinnati, which is amazing, and I was involved with last year. It's a really great, it's like the biggest projection festival in the world, actually, I think, maybe.
Yeah. I think you're right, actually.
But that stuff like that is really wild, and I think that what you're talking about is also accessibility, and this is something that's interesting and pervasive, like a pervasive problem in our industry at all levels. But like this is accessibility of the audience and how we get new people in who either aren't going to go into the $35, $50 a ticket, venues. I did, yesterday my wife and I were wandering around the High Line. There's a really cool experience that's a Hyundai sponsored experience. It's called the Genesis House. And it's an LED experience. It's really cool. 15-minute walkthrough, it's free. You should all check it out. It's actually really well done, but we just stumbled on it and I was like, this is amazing. It's stuff like that I think is really good. I think there needs to be more of it. Like we're trying to start an effort in the Bay Area to do more stuff like that. But that it takes, it's like framework. It takes vendor sponsorships. It takes people engaging. So I think it takes effort to do it.
I also think that it's a little bit generational with audiences, and I think the Gen Z and the millennial audiences, the younger audiences, they expect agency, and they expect to participate, whereas maybe Gen X, my generation, and up, they're more used to the observational model. So I find it's fun to get them prompted, but it's also fun to meet the younger audience where they want to be, which is give me something to play with. Do you have time for one more, Rod? One more question? Okay, we got... Oh, two more.
Can I get my laptop back on stage?
My question is about
Can you put my laptop back on stage?
when you're conceiving projects, especially in atypical spaces, and you're thinking in terms of a trans-generational audience, where us Gen Xers might be more into narrative, but a lot of digital natives really are looking for soulful wonder masquerading as an Instagrammable moment, right? And then balancing that with your client who's like, knows their marketing budget is Instagrammable. And narrative doesn't always pick up in that space. where do you draw the line when you're pitching concepts between how much narrative do I want to give my client who might not care about it, but I need it to tie the experience together, and how much do I just think about getting the canvas from them budget-wise and then showing them the narrative later, or not caring about narrative at all, just talk about those things.
It's a really good question. I generally, in the pitch process for something like that, I'll break it down and say, here's some cool stuff we can do. Here's what it achieves for your presence and your Instagram moment and like your publicity. But and also the reason they're hiring, I think, people like us in this room is for that deeper connection and for that deeper experience. So I just kind of call it out and give them the choice. We'll give them the experience, but I think when it comes down to it, like what Bob's saying, like people want agency. You kind of have to. I think there's a lot of value in that deeper experience and that finding that little nugget that you can bury, because it's also a good talking point. So I will generally find some sort of tiny, deeper meaning to put in no matter what. We're getting cut off.
Yeah, I think we're out of time. Super sorry. I think,
talk about it
and I'll cap it just by saying this, it's incumbent on us as the creators to help our clients to see this opportunity and to see the exponential payoff of it. And it's why some people in the room have seen me in the pitch, and I get possessed in the pitch because I think it's my moment in the room to enroll maybe a corporate board, you know, maybe even people like who work in themed entertainment and should understand this, but it's my moment to try to impart like how magical this could be if, right? And so for us, we have to think past the spec and to the soul and to the story and to the prompt. The people and the places, we got that already. Think about the prompt. Thanks.
Thanks, man.